Oh, are we working? I think we're working.
Woo.
It looks okay. Yeah, okay.
All
Sorry
right.
for the technical difficulties.
Okay.
We're
So we're trying
here.
this intro again?
We're here. We're here.
We're here.
We're here.
Okay.
Episode 2.
Episode 2. Everyone, welcome to the Outplay Podcast, where we look like a bunch of scrubs because computers like to suck sometimes. Again, if you're just tuning in, we are here with Globas from Lineage eSports, and I am Jonny eSports from the eSports radio show, here to talk about League of Legends for the next hour and all that good kind of stuff.
And only 8 minutes late.
And only 8 minutes late. That's not so bad. We've been streaming all day, to be fair, too. So we were really early.
Yeah, that's fair. We
go
got
with that.
a little late because the computer decided to be like, screw you. So
Mm-hmm.
I got outplayed by the computer.
Outplayed by the computer. Well, if GBM can be ganked by mom, we can get outplayed by our computers.
Oh man, that's actually a really good way to start that little video documentary that Riot did.
Yeah.
About GBM. That was kind of cool. I feel like Riot seems to always do their non-North American players.
Right.
Like their import players that are in North America seem to always get the videos. I feel like we haven't really seen any many documentaries about the NA talents except for maybe Double Lift.
Right. Yeah, because last one they did a Bunny Fufu one. Remember
Did they?
doing a Bunny Fufu? Yeah, they did a
Okay.
Bunny Fufu one. Otherwise, I can't really think of any other talents they did that. I just sent if you guys don't know what we're talking about, LOL or Riot does a documentary series called The Drive, which is basically like a focus on a specific player. If you go to LLEsports.com, it's right on the front page. They did one on GBM, who is the mid laner for Energy Esports in North America. Just a really kind of cool backstory with him, about him kind of like really failing in his very first game ever, but since then has been a very, very strong player and has come to NA to mixed results, but I think good personal results. And he's a player I like watching, so kind of a cool story. A lot of the stories for a lot of these guys coming into like pro gaming is always like their parents don't believe in them, and then eventually the parents believe in them once they started making money. So that's the thing. It seems to be a very common theme, which is like reasonable, like if you think about it, because like even if you told me 6 years ago and you told me you could legitimately make money unless you were Korean. I knew about like Korea, StarCraft was crazy, and all of that, but I didn't really believe that like esports and competitive gaming would really be a viable income source in North America so soon anyway. Because like it really feels like the past like 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden, boom, it's huge. So huge enough that we have a whole podcast about one game, not even all esports.
I know. I mean, if we were talking about more esports, you'd have a different co-host because I'm just like League, and that's about it. You know, a little bit of Hearthstone,
That's cool, man.
about it. But
That's cool, but well, the thing is, like, with my regular show, the eSports Radio Show, which is on CKUW 95.9 FM, by the way, people, Sundays at 4 p.m. It's more
If
of a
you're from
general
Winnipeg.
eSports. If you're from Winnipeg, you can also tune in online at ckuw.ca. But it's more of a general eSports show, and I kind of go over just like whatever topic, and sometimes I try to find like weird niche things. Like we talked about PlanetSide 2 the other day, and but I always want to talk a lot about League of Legends because it's my favorite game. So it's like I have actually had to scale back so much League of Legends content on that show, especially since it's only half an hour, that show. And obviously we started doing this because we can talk a whole hour on League of Legends. So it's fun to be here and be doing that. So without further delay, we kind of already started with NA talking about GBM. So let's talk about kind of what has happened this week in the North American LCS.
yeah, it's been kind of an up and down week. I mean, I had personally thought that the games would have gone different ways. Like,
Right.
one of the big upsets I want to talk about is TSM versus Renegades.
Right.
TSM, we talked about last episode about how at IEM they stepped up. Like I felt like they were not the team that I expect them to be, but they showed, glimpses of it. They were starting to work towards what I hope that they become, and then they played against Renegades, one of the worst teams in the LCS right now, with 2 new members, and got slaughtered. Like, it was embarrassing to say the least.
It was awful. It's funny because they played 2 games this week. Obviously, they played Team Impulse in the first game, and I actually tweeted out before the game saying, if TSM doesn't win here, even though Team Impulse is was surging kind of a bit before this, I would strongly reconsider like the direction TSM is going in. I said that before the Team Impulse game. I didn't say that before the Renegades game because I just kind of assumed, okay, so they'll just win that game, we're good. And clearly that's not what happened. Renegades go into that game with only 2 wins in the season. Their 1 win coming in week 1 and a second win coming the week before. So now they pick up the 3rd win against TSM, who really wanted, like, if they needed to win this to have a shot at 2nd place and maybe that bye. But it's looking, it's definitely looking way too far with only a week to go left in the LCS. So that's just, it's such a bad, like, there's so much that can go wrong with TSM and you're like fine with it and you're like, okay, well, they'll build things and they'll get better and their macro play is getting better here, there's some shot calling is getting better here and you're okay with that little build as a fan personally even, but then you see them lose to Renegades and it's just like deflates everything. And respect to the new players on Renegades, but
Ninja and Seraph.
They should not have lost to them.
Well, to be fair, Renegades is a weird team in that they have they have a gold lead against nearly every team in the first 15 minutes. And
Crumb's early game plays out of his mind. In the first, I don't know the stats because we're not like crazy LCS. We don't have the stats guys with us. But like in the first 10 minutes, I gotta believe Crumbs is among the best junglers in the NALCS right now. Maybe behind Rainover is what I would assume. Because Crumb's early game has been awesome.
It has, and it's been something that, like, you see, even if they don't take much in the ways of kill advantage, they'll have 10, 15 minutes in the game, they'll have maybe a tower up or 2, they'll be up in CS in every lane, and you're thinking, oh, they're up like 2k gold, even though it's 0-0 or very 1-1, low kills.
Right.
It's like, oh, they got this gold advantage, and then they just do nothing with it, and then immediately throw it towards the rest of the game. And it's like even though they're like a low LCS team, it's like you gotta commend them for at least doing so well in the early game. It's almost like because they're owned by Monte Cristo, who is famed as somebody who understands the Korean meta, and is a very good analyst. And it's funny to think that like he just taught them everything, but only got to minute 10. Like he's like, oh, this is what SKT does in every game. This is what Ku Tigers does in every, or Rox Tigers does in every game. And they like taught them everything, and they're like, oh, it's beautiful. We're learning everything. We're gonna be this great team. And then after 10 minutes, they're like, oh, what are we supposed to do from here on out? I have no idea.
I don't know. We only discussed the first 10 minutes. Monte Cristo's in Korea right now.
Yeah, but yeah.
To be fair,
and TSM doesn't know what to do after that. They just fell behind, and that was it.
Yeah, just one more point on that, the Monte Cristo thing. Like, Monte Cristo also tried to be the coach for CLG to not a lot of success. And I think Monte Cristo is a really smart guy, and I think he does know a lot of his stuff. But clearly, he's kind of shown he's not a coach for Renegades to make that clear.
Yeah, he's outright said that he's an organizational owner, and he's trying not to take the coaching role because he had said with CLG it was too hard to do from a satellite location.
Yeah, and I think if Monte Cristo ever wanted to focus on that one thing, I think he just likes casting that much. Like, why else would he want? I think he just really enjoys watching Korean LCS, or sorry, not Korean pro games, LCK. So, and that's probably like one of those like. Well, probably there's people who really like watching the NHL and don't like watching Russian hockey because it's not the highest level, even if it's their home, right? So I'd imagine he just really likes casting the LCK and doesn't want to come over here to coach full-time or whatever. But I don't really know where I was going with that, but it's just kind of an interesting point, I guess.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed by this match. It was sad to watch. I think, though, that I'm really hoping that this says something about what's going on with the shot calling in TSM, because I've been saying it for a while now that something's not right, and I'm actually at a point now where it's like, what do you do? There's only 1 week of LCS left, and then you're in the playoffs.
And you play Immortals in that week.
Right. That being said, if you can beat Immortals, I'd give you some hope.
Then all of a sudden everything's different. Then you're
Right.
like, well, you won the game you weren't supposed to win, and lost the game you weren't supposed. And the records would be what you were thought they were going to be, but you beat the better team because maybe you didn't take one team seriously or didn't even prepare for them. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
If they could focus on more morals, this is like. People tend to have hyperbole when it comes to sports on like this is the most important game, but like this kind of is. I think TSM, even though they also play Energy Esports, a very good team as well. At the second game of next week, I think they should just focus all their attention on beating the Immortals, and I think they would quiet a lot of critics just on that alone.
And they really do need to beat Energy. Like Immortals, I feel like they can lose against and be okay because they are top of the standings. It's just like it's just the way it is. But they really need to beat Energy here because Energy faces TSM and CLG this week, and Energy is only one game behind TSM, and Liquid is tied with Energy, and that's your playoff bracket. Like if you lose both games this week for TSM, you got to be scared because that means Energy's tied with you, and that means Liquid only has to beat one team, and they play against.
They play against
Dignitas and Cloud9.
Which we'll talk about Dignitas in a bit, and then they play against Cloud9, which is hard.
You're very likely to see a tiebreaker in the lower tier of that playoff bracket, and I mean you might even see, if I go back here to the standings, you might even see Echo Fox. They won't. They're 2 wins down. No, Liquid or Energy would have to lose both games. Mind you, Energy might lose both games because they played CLG and TSM.
Right.
Liquid, I don't see losing both games. And who does Echo Fox play against? Echo Fox plays against Cloud9 and Renegades. Ooh, that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be, that'd be interesting. Speaking of Cloud9, I actually want to talk about them for a little bit. They are able to have a really good week here as well and are able to take victories over against Renegades and over against Team Impulse. Both kind of like lower level teams, but like I think Cloud9 is starting to assert dominance, much like we've seen Cloud9s in the past. Do you think that this Cloud9 team is at least back to where they were when they were kind of like this dominant LCS team? Or are they better?
Cloud9 has been, they trust me when I say like this is something I thought about for like 3 years now. Since Cloud9 came into the scene, they came in roaring in with what, like a 25-3 record or something.
Yeah.
And they became like the North American team. And they've been top 2 since, up until last split, when High stepped down, and then when they brought him back, they started showing vast improvements really quickly. To me, Cloud9 has never gotten better or worse, but every other team has gotten better.
Right. That makes sense to me.
And that's what I feel like, because Cloud9, I would say, are probably on par to what they were 2 years ago. I don't feel like they've really improved since. But I do feel like the rest of the North American region has caught up, because there was a time where it was like the bottom half of the LCS was kind of a joke, and then you had TSM and Cloud9.
Totally.
And now
and CLG would flirt with them every once in a while.
Yeah, and you had Dignitas would win the first half of the split and then lose everything else.
Yeah, and then Curse would finish fourth.
No matter what they did. And then I feel like now we have actual competition, and so Cloud9, even though they're still a very strong team, I don't feel like they're top tier anymore. I feel like it's going to be a struggle for the top.
Right. Well, like they're a team right now that's perfectly lined up to finish second in the NALCS. I actually have a mildly different opinion. I think they're about the same in every aspect except for mid lane. I think Jensen, they actually Hyde never really carried a whole lot out of the mid lane. He just had a really good. They just had a really good macro play on that team for the NALCS. They were able to put together team comps that at the time NA just wasn't doing and wasn't able to get to that. So like you said, I think everyone else is caught up in that kind of macro play stuff. However, I think now they actually have a carry out of Jensen and Medios, who was their jungler for a really long time. He was very much a supportive jungler as well. But now they have Rush in the jungle there, who can carry a lot of games himself too. Like you just look at the difference between Team Impulse with Rush and Team Impulse without Rush. I know it's slightly unfair because they're also without Zhao, who was a big carry for them as well. But Team Impulse just looks like, even though they've won a couple games recently, not a very good team at all. And a lot of that is to do with Rush being on that team and being such a good carry jungler. So I think Cloud9 in a macro sense probably isn't any better than they were before. Out on the world stage, I don't see them doing anything. Maybe they'll make some upsets like they did last Worlds, but then eventually lose. But I feel like they at least have a little bit more carries than they have in the past.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
It's
fair.
not just Sneaky. Sneaky carried a lot of those games
For a long
too.
time too. It used to be Balls, and I feel like Balls has actually fallen off the map a little bit.
Oh yeah,
He was arguably the best top laner in North America, and I would not even put him in my top 4 or top 5 right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I feel like this playoff bracket's gonna get really interesting because, as far as I understand, there is no way Immortals doesn't get first.
Right.
And so they'll get first. Second place is basically between Counterlogic and Cloud9. I'm actually going to give it to Cloud9 just because Counterlogic or CLG has this past week, basically with the tank meta, the tank top lane meta, Darshan has become useless. Like,
Yeah.
we talked about this last episode how CLG's strat is to split push and have Darshan carry to victory, but with the tank top lane meta, you can't split push to victory. Unless you absolutely slaughter your opponent, which just doesn't happen in this level of play. So I feel like CLG is going to struggle at least until the playoffs, but they have a few weeks to hopefully figure out something for the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, and in those games, I think Cloud9 has a more difficult schedule in these last 2 games. They are going up against Echo Fox and Team Liquid there. Both teams they can lose to. And CLG is going up with Energy Esports, who can be a tough matchup for them, but as well, they're going up against Team Dignitas, who is really, really freaking bad, which is actually the next team I want to talk about before we move on from NA. If anyone wants to watch the most ridiculous games, just watch Team Dignitas' games this week, because they look like they could actually play this game for a little bit. They end up losing to Echo Fox, who has Froggen and Keith McBrief, or I think he just goes by Keith now, just farm to over 700 CS and do both of them break records in terms of CS in a professional game, and just come back and win when Team Dignitas had 2 Barons and got 5 Dragons twice or something like that in that game. The casters even said, I don't see how Dignitas can lose this game now, and then they end up losing to Echo Fox in the most ridiculous finish. And then once again, Team Dignitas actually playing very, very well against the Immortals, able to get a lead in that game and actually play very, very strong.
And then threw it.
And then just absolutely threw it. This was a game where they had Shifter going 10-2-4 on the Corki there.
Yeah, they were up like 20 kills.
Yeah. They were up in gold at one point. They were up 10k gold at the 39-minute mark, and then at the end, Immortals were able to catch up, and they ended up with the gold lead at the end of the game. But since that 10k gold lead, it just kept dropping way down, back down to Immortals' favor. A lot of that to Sivir on Wild Turtle, who in the past has played a lot of Sivir, so we know Wild Turtle's very, very good on it, and now Wild Turtle's now Sivir's borderline OP with the W's being able to crit. So basically Wild Turtle was able to scale back into this game and be able to kind of carry his team back into it and win it. But I think it was less him carrying and more Dignitas failing really, really hard again.
It's something in their macro play, and I have to go back to what Scar. If you remember Skara, their former mid laner, used to be the face of Dignitas. A very famous quote from him is, "Up until they lose, they're winning," and it's true. Like Dignitas's entire strategy is just win the game and then find a way to throw it right at the end. And you can take the Digna out of Dignitas, but you can't lose the toss. Some joke there.
That's a tossing. There's something there. There's definitely something there. So, Dignitas, I don't really understand how you can be that bad. I won't go as far as say if I had a 10k gold lead over Immortals would win, but it just seems like if you're a professional player and you have that lead, you shouldn't lose. You just shouldn't.
Yeah, it's not solo queue. These are people who should see what the end goal is and take advantage of it. But Yeah, there was a few points at the end there where they got really greedy. I remember they were taking I believe it was an inhib or it was a Nexus tower. I can't remember. And they could have gone back and played really slow, but I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a wrong game. That was the game where they had taken 2 inhibs and they had still 20 seconds on like three Immortals members who were dead, and then 20 seconds to destroy the base. And even I would say I'm a good shot caller, but I am like here's an LCS shot caller, here's Graham. Like, it's a big gap, and I was sitting there thinking like, win, like, is this not obvious to you? Like, just go. Like, literally Apollo could have taken his keyboard, thrown it at Shifter's head, and then taken his mouse and just right-clicked the towers to victory.
Yeah,
but they didn't, and it was like. No. There's something that macro play where it was like it was almost at that point I would have said a pride issue in that, or not a pride issue, but a David versus Goliath kind of mentality where they were like, this is Immortals, like this is the team that
we have to be careful here.
We have to be super careful because Immortals is the best team in North America. They've only lost 1 game. Like, we have to play super slow. Even though we've taken their entire base, we should go back. Let's play safe. We'll come back and win this. And like that, at that moment when they said we're the weaker team, even though we're up 10k gold, they gave up. Like, that was it. They mentally were like, we're weaker than we actually are, and that was it. It stunted their own gameplay, and it was it's sad because it's like Dignitas coming into the season I thought was gonna do a little bit better than they are, but I feel like they're constantly feeling like the underdogs, and it's just screwing them over.
Yeah, it's too bad. But like, they now actually have a chance because of these losses to finish last place, and if Renegades can pick up some wins and Dignitas loses a couple more, and then they'd be up for relegation. So, man, they needed to win one of these games.
I don't know if the changes, Like, they're up for relegation no matter what. It's the bottom 2 LCS teams are up for relegation, but there is no more auto relegation.
Oh, right. That's how it works. So they could be, right. Sorry,
so unless they finish above Impulse, then they're going to be relegated. In which case they have to play in a tournament versus the top 2 challenger teams and Renegades, and the top 2 of that tournament stay in the LCS.
Okay, is it the same? Is NA and EU? It's the same.
It's the same. It's the same.
Okay, just curious. So do we want to go over to EU or talk about the NA Challenger Series real quick? Just because that's happening.
I don't think we have time to talk about the Challenger Series much today. I think we're gonna have to talk about just like the regions. But I do want to make one quick point. I forgot to talk about. We were talking about the Renegades versus TSM match.
Right.
There was a moment. I don't know if you saw. Seraph, who is now Renegades top laner, who used to be on TDK, a challenger team. He's a Korean top laner, very, very good, and he used to play for CLG, and he's been in North America for a few years now.
Right.
When they went to go shake hands, Seraph refused to shake Sven's hand. TSM's jungler. He went. It was if looks could kill. He went and he shook everyone's hand. It got to Svenskeren, and he literally put his hand down to his side, walked past him, and then went to Hanser and shook his hand. And they were talking about it on Reddit, and there was an interview that he had, and somebody finally asked him, like, okay, well, why weren't you willing to shake his hand? And it was because Svenskeren years ago used to be very racist and toxic in solo queue, and he was actually banned from Worlds 2 years ago, for part of Worlds, because he had changed his summoner name while in Korea to a very racist name against Koreans.
Wow.
I'll say it because it's not racist to say it, but it was very racist to do it. He changed his name to something along the lines of like Ching Chong.
Right.
And it was something like that, and I can't remember what it was now, but it was something like that, and it was just Riot found it offensive, people found it offensive, so they banned him from Worlds for a few games, and so Sarah felt that he just couldn't shake his hand. He couldn't,
that's legitimate.
Couldn't give him the respect to
because I was gonna say that reminds me of when when Faker was playing. I think they were playing OMG. Was it? And they didn't shake Faker's hand for whatever reason. And then next time they played, Faker was like, "I'm gonna." He didn't say I'm gonna body them, but I'm gonna beat these guys because they wouldn't shake our hands, and then they destroyed them. And it was awesome and super epic. I think it was OMG that. Season 3 Worlds, I think it was. All right, so let's move on to the EU LCS and talk about some stuff happening there. We very good news coming into this week was that Forgiven, who was given allowed to play because he was actually going to be sent to do military duty over in Greece, but he was basically kind of given I don't know what the exact word is.
Deferment.
A deferment, yeah, so he can finish the LCS season and hopefully into Worlds too.
They never said how long the deferment is. From my understanding, so Forgiven is from Greece, and he outright said that he doesn't want to avoid his military duties by illegal means or by disrespectful means because he's so proud to be Greek.
Yeah,
and a lot of Greek people on Reddit, on the forums, were saying, like, you can actually just not show up, but you end up paying, and it was something along the lines of, like, a euro a day. It was some sort of, like, I can't remember what it was, but for every day that you avoid your military
assignment,
your military draft, you avoid the draft, you have to pay so much a day. And it ended up being, like, $300 a year. So he would have been, like, it was like $1 a day or $2 a day. So he would have been fine if he wanted to do that. But he said, I don't want to do it illegally. And then some people said, well, you could try and fight like you have depression or anxiety or something like that, and they will let you defer. And he again said, I don't want to lie to my country. I don't want to do this. If I have to do it, I have to do it. And he had an interview where he was very emotional on stage and crying because he had felt like he was being robbed of this opportunity.
Yeah, he's in his prime, and primes in esports don't last very long.
No, like these careers are so short, and this is arguably the best AD carry in the West.
Yeah,
and it was being taken away from him, and then it came out that he got deferred, and it sounds like H2K got involved, like the organization he plays for, and they talked to some lawyers, and they were able to say, like, listen, he's playing a once in a lifetime career opportunity. Can you give him deferment? And they said okay. And I don't know how long it is. They never said if it's up until Worlds, if it's up until 2 years, if it's up until next month. We don't know. So I'm really hoping that it's longer term, because I would love to see HK make Worlds and see how they, with the current roster, make Worlds and see how it goes. With that being said, though, there was a tweet that made me laugh uncontrollably. That was, this is the first time H2K has lost to a draft.
That's good. That's good. All right. So to everything else kind of going on, H2K actually after this week do sit tied for first place in the EU LCS standings with G2 eSports. So it's going to be a kind of a battle between them for the last week coming into playoffs to see. Excuse me, who's going to be able to take that one there. So good for H2K that they're going to be able to get that. It would have been a very, very big shame if basically they lost their best player. That, like, I don't know what H2K can do at Worlds. That's really far off from right now, I think, but they're doing very, very well right now this season, so we'll have to see how that goes going forward. We talked about last week this Origin team, and we talked about how Power Evil was stepping down due to sickness, and XPK was going to come back into this game, and they were like, watch XPK go in there and win, and everyone's going to be like, oh, XPK is gone. So that's kind of what happened. They win both their games against Unicorns of Love and Rocket, but
it wasn't them outplaying in any way, shape, or form. In fact, both games, if I remember correctly, I'm even going to pull it up, they were losing all the way towards the end, and it wasn't until they were able to stall the game to the point that the enemy team made a mistake, some sort of positional error or a team fight error, and then they were able to win the game. And these were very, very nitty-gritty close games that I feel like you could have had XPK or Power of Evil or probably anyone else and still done okay. And it was only in the first game that XPK outshone the rest of his team, but I don't feel like that was like something that Power of Evil couldn't have done.
Yeah, especially since these are two teams that you just should have beat. Like, you just should have beat anyway, whether it's Power of Evil or... Like, Unicorns of Love, a little bit more, like, that's more of a toss-up. But the game against what's it called? Rawcat. That should have been much easier, but Rawcat had a 8.4K gold lead at the 35-minute mark there in that one, largely on the back of Tabs playing really strong on that Sivir again. Yeah, this is like theoretically again a 50-50 matchup against Unicorns, but this team against Rawcat, they should have been much better than, and they get the wins. And it's not so much Xpeke is a god, but I don't know what this Origin team needs to do. I think we covered that last week. Where like I don't know, there's so much going wrong with this team, and no one's out there to carry. Soaz tries to do that sometimes and still gets caught out, and it's just it's not a formula that's going to work for very long, and I don't know what they necessarily have to change. Unless the meta just changes in their favor. I think a lot of that too is like the meta isn't really working with them, and they're just not really the team that I want them to be.
Yeah, I know they're your team and you're a little fanboy. You got to be like, oh, Xpeke, save my team.
Xpeke is so beautiful.
Yeah, I think the one match that this week that really caught my eye was the Vitality versus G2 game. Because I like, and even G2 had outright said like this is the match to watch because as much as H2K is tied with G2 for first place, Vitality is skill wise and in my opinion actually the best team in Europe right now.
All right.
Because they've been on an upward swing and the meta really works to them. Like they love. Cabochard is just like a god in the top lane. Like he is absolutely insane. And the only reason why they're not in first place is because they're one win down from losing to G2. But coming into this week, they have an easier matchups, I believe. I'm actually going to look what they're playing. They play Rawcat and Splice, who I would be surprised if they don't go 2-0.
Right.
And so after this week, it's very possible that either G2 or H2K lose a game, as they both play Unicorns of Love, and then they play weaker teams in Splice, and H2K faces Elements. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if G2 or HK lost the game to Unicorns. I would give it like 70-30 to H2K and G2. But I think Unicorns actually is not a bad team. I just think that they're struggling from swapping junglers 3 times throughout the split.
Yeah, I think Unicorns is going to be a much stronger next season, or the next split rather. Just because they're kind of building on a lot of things. They're kind of like what I was saying with TSM before. They're kind of a team that does little things more and more right every week, and you're okay with them winning. The only thing that like they have over TSM is that TSM has much higher expectations than this Unicorns of Love team does. So they're probably on par with those teams, but their expectations are lower, so they're able to just kind of like chip away at becoming slowly a more and more improved team. And I think they have a very good chance of having a very good split in the summer.
Yeah, and I think that the next week for Europe is going to be very... You're not going to see too many upsets. Like, it's a lot... There's no real middle ground teams. The only team that's like is middle ground that facing each other is Origin and Fnatic. And that will help decide placements for playoffs. Because they're tied for 4th with Unicorns. But aside from that, like, there's no possible way. We already know what our playoffs are. Like, unless, like, there's no way, because there's a 4-win gap between Unicorns and Elements. So we already know our 6 teams for playoffs. It's just a matter of placements, and we're probably going to see some tiebreakers between Origin, Fnatic, and Unicorns. So, I don't see any big upsets next week. And I think this week was the same thing. Like, there wasn't... I'll be honest, like, there wasn't many upsets. I think that... I hate to say it, but Europe's a little stale right now. It's like the top 6 teams and then everybody, and then the other 4. Like, there is no, like, real upset games.
And the big thing is for the EU LCS, it's these top 6 teams that, besides maybe... Like, I feel like H2K is really strong. None of them seem like world's hopes on coming out of here. I know you said you really like Team Vitality, but just
I think you're underestimating Europe.
Right. Oh, yeah, which is true because like Fnatic, who is obviously a middle of the pack team, was able to make it to the finals at IAM, and I very much might be underestimating Europe.
I'll be honest. I would put G2, Vitality, and H2K above every North American team except for Immortals. I'd put those four in the same pack as like top tier between the two regions, and I would put like Cloud9, CLG just below that, and then I'd put the rest of Europe and North America in a mishmash.
I would probably put Cloud9 over any team in EU personally, and then put CLG in the mix with these top teams. I think Cloud9 is a lot better than maybe again I've been caught overhyping teams, but I think Cloud9 just what they do on a macro sense is just solid, and they have some carries now, so I think they're pretty good. We'll have to see kind of come to the playoffs even how that goes, but I think we got. I think now that we're talking about this, what I kind of wish they did. I know they do MSI, which brings in a bunch of teams from different regions to play in a little tournament. Now I kind of wish they just had an NA versus EU like mini tournament. Just take the two best teams from each region or something that finish first and second, and then just do a mini tournament with just those teams. I think that would be fun. And how much would Twitch and Reddit love the whole NA versus EU thing? I think that would draw more viewers than IEM. I would think.
Maybe. I'll say two things to you.
Anyway.
I'll say two things to you. One, I can't wait to crush your dreams at MSI when Europe slaughters everyone. Next, maybe Immortals. Like I said, Immortals I would put on par. But if Cloud9 happens to make it, I can't wait for your dreams to be crushed, Jonny. I live off of this.
That would be good. I look forward to MSI then.
Secondly, I'll say I actually had this joke once, and I really wish it would happen. It'd be really funny. Is I don't want to see the top teams from each region. I want to see like an MSI level event where it's the bottom three teams,
the relegated teams,
teams from each region. Like, could you imagine watching Dignitas face off against like Splice?
Yeah. I would watch that.
Yeah,
I would definitely watch.
Like how great would that be? It'd be just clown fiestas all the way through. It would be the most entertaining. Like, you're not sure if it's great gameplay or terrible gameplay, but it'd be beautiful.
Yeah, I'd be down.
The Elements versus Renegades finals. Yeah, that's the dream.
That is the dream. Well, they should just do that tournament online, like separate from like, and just like that's all
play
practice.
On the Korea server so that
everyone's equally
terrible ping.
Exactly.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. Well, I'm just gonna quickly breeze by the EU LCS final, or sorry, the EU Challenger Series final. Huma beats Copenhagen Wolves in a best of 5. If you want to watch, kind of, I don't know, Challenger Series is good. League of Legends to watch, but this actually best of 5 was just like, it was so messy, and Copenhagen Wolves, much like Dignitas, kind of threw a game this game 5 that they should have won, and Huma it wins this final here.
They were up 2-0, and their Twitter tweeted out to Shocks, "Thanks for holding on to our cup for us," because they were 2-0 in the best of 5, and then they lost the last 3 games, and it's like that poor guy got fired on the spot.
That's so harsh. That's so harsh.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny because when I looked at those rosters going into the Challenger Series, I was like, actually, they're not bad rosters.
Yeah.
If either of them made the I could see either of them making the LCS. And I never paid attention much to the Challenger Series. I just saw like the scores, like, oh, these teams are winning. I'm like, of course those teams are winning. Like the rosters are insane. And Huma used to have Santorin up until recently. But I don't know did you read the whole Huma crisis?
No.
Okay, I am going to enlighten you, my friend, because
I
am pissed off Huma won just because of this crisis. So, Huma is owned by a guy, so it's like me in that I run this little organization called Lineage eSports. It's just a bunch of friends I have, blah, 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 blah. Now, imagine I took Lineage eSports, and I went on League, and I chatted up Medios or Special or some pro players and said, listen, I have $50,000 in funding,
right,
or $300,000 in funding is what it was. That's the actual number that was said. per year. I'd like to get a team together. And then I get all these people this contract saying I have this money and then never pay anyone. That is Huma, because Huma is a guy who it was somebody who's been doing this for multiple years under multiple organization names and multiple fake names.
Right.
Huma, I believe, is put under his girlfriend's name so that people wouldn't recognize the name from previous just shady freaking deals. But all these people are signing contracts. Now, I know nothing about legal rights. I know nothing about contract stuff. But it's insane to me to think that you don't get paid and you could still have to work for the guy. But from my understanding, it's not so much that the people, because the people could just leave because they're not being paid. From my understanding, but they're not, because the Challenger Series spot is owned by that guy. Because the way Riot organizes the slots in LCS and Challenger Series, it's not owned by the players, it's owned by the owner.
Right.
So even though he pays the players nothing, he is the registered owner. He owns that championship spot. Mm-hmm. So when this all went down, that turned out they were broke, guess what they did? No joke, sold Santorin. They couldn't afford a house or to get to the LCS or the Challenger Series finals. So what they do is they brought in Rudy, who was playing for Unicorns. Yeah. Only because they had to sell. They were willing to sell any player that anyone wanted to buy, and Santorin was the one that was offered the most, who ended up going to Ember in North America because of the fact that he can be registered as a North American resident because he played in North America before he was grandfathered in. So Ember bought Santorin, and so that's how Huma was able to pay for everything. Now, apparently, the owner of Huma said that he was going to sell the company and had offered. Actually, there was I think it was Complexity had offered to buy it for so much money, and the Huma owner kept denying it because he wanted more money, and the players were begging him to sell but wouldn't. And this again aggravates me to no end, because it's like this guy, no matter what, is going to end up with money in his pocket.
That's so brutal. I hear it. I actually never knew the details of anything. I hear just the Challenger scene is super sketchy. I've always just heard that, but I never actually heard any of the deals and any of the stories. So that's it's interesting, but super messed up.
It's terrible. It's actually disgusting to think.
The worst part is if people don't know, a lot of these guys are 18, 17, they're pretty young kids that are just being taken advantage of because they don't know any better. They're just playing video games. They're I can play video games at a really high level. I can make it pro. I'll try it. Let's go. And so Santorin, you're he's an 18-year-old guy being sold to another thing. That's super sketchy.
It is, and it's one of those things that it was funny to me when I learned about Ember, the organization, and they talked about a lot of their things that are what make them better than other Challenger Series teams or LCS teams for that matter.
Right.
And they were talking about how they are making sure that they would do the paperwork for the taxable incomes that the players receive, and they would pay them direct deposit. That was a benefit. And I may be wrong here, but the way I read that is they are saying that most LCS teams don't pay that way. Yeah. Right? And that's insane to me, because could you imagine as a player, again, like you said, these are 17, 18-year-old guys who don't know how to do taxes and stuff. Now, for me, I've worked minimum wage jobs. I've worked summer jobs, in school, whatever. All I know is I get a paycheck at the end of 2 weeks, and it goes in my bank account immediately. And then at the end of the year, my taxes are done, and usually the company that I've worked for has done a good job of that, and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now, imagine you're a guy playing video games for a living, and you're getting this money, and I don't know if they're giving it bi-weekly. Is it by month? Is it one large sum?
Theoretically under the table?
Right. And
here's an envelope of cash?
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, probably
here, Bjergsen, here's your giant envelope of cash. He just chucks it at the screen, and it's there you go. And it's all in $1 bills.
I'll pay you in Twitch subscribers.
In Riot points.
Riot points.
Yeah.
I used to play in tournaments for Riot points. That was me. Oh.
And it's but it's weird to me to think that other organizations don't do that. And it's kind of terrible. But that's a whole different argument to get into. And I'm really hoping that Huma sells, because and it sucks that Santorin had to leave because that roster was very strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I feel like going into the LCS, I definitely see them making the LCS because the lower tier European teams, like we talked about, I think are trash.
So, just because I didn't know the changes, so basically, even though they won the Challenger Series, they are not automatically posted. They still have to win a mini tournament.
Right. So now what happens is, from my understanding, there is. I might be wrong with this. I'm trying to remember those. Like they verbalized the tournament bracket, but they never showed it. But from my understanding, basically the 9th place, your LCS team will get a first round bye.
Okay.
The 8th place team will play against the top challenger team.
Okay.
And then the lower challenger team goes immediately into the losers bracket.
Okay.
So
it's like easier if you win it, but it's not.
Right.
You still have to win some more things. All right. All right.
So and then the top 2 from that tournament will go into the LCS. So logically, from my understanding, it's almost improbable that 2 LCS teams will drop out. Because you would have to have both challenger teams win all the way through.
Right.
And if either team lost the game, they would face each other, which means that at least one LCS team will make it back into the LCS.
That's kind of unfortunate. I like, as much as like it also kind of sucks for an auto relegation. You just want to see fresh blood and fresh things happen.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of these newer teams, both in North America and Europe, and mostly North America though, are now angel investor organizations.
Right.
I'm mixing my terms up here. In which a large amount of money is being funneled in by either multiple investors or, in the case of Echo Fox, by Rick Fox. And these teams, they want their investment to last long term. So if Energy doesn't make it to Worlds, they don't want to say, well, there goes our money, peace out.
Yeah.
Or if Energy is a bad split, and they don't want to say, like, well, there goes everything. Like, what do we even do now?
Right.
And they want their investment to be worth more. So they're trying to keep these teams in longer. And
right. Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying it's the right answer. I'm just saying I get why the logic's there.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. Because you would have occasional teams that were just like, we'll make it to the LCS and then lose and then be relegated and then we'll make it to the LCS. So there are some teams that cycle through that, but that's Alex Isha's permanent job now.
Yes. Oh God. Don't get me started on that.
Okay, well, let's move on. Let's go to Korea, and we'll see. They started playing again last week, but last night rather. But let's go to last week and talk about a little bit of what's kind of gone on there. Kind of the biggest game for me here, watching here, Samsung Galaxy and the ROX Tigers play against each other. They play best of threes in Korea, if you guys don't know that. And basically, it starts off going the way you expect. ROX Tigers being this undefeated team, they win the first game very easily, and then I thought, okay, well, they're just going to go on and win the rest of this. However, Samsung Galaxy makes a huge, giant comeback and is able to win games 2 and 3 to win both of these. A lot of this having to do with some amazing jungling coming out of Ambition from Samsung Galaxy, who played the Graves in Game 2 to go 8-3 and 6, and was able to kind of really do some really strong plays to just outplay the Tigers, which is crazy to see because no one's been able to outplay the Tigers. And then in the third game, Ambition goes off again and goes 7-0-7 on the Kindred, and is able to really win this game for his team. And the ROX Tigers look human for once.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like this is their first loss in the LCK, but it was also to a team. It was to a team that is middle of the pack. Like it wasn't even a team that you would have expected to beat them.
Right, yeah.
It was just like a middle of the pack team, and it was like, oh, okay, well that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, cool.
Mind you, I think that this seems to happen every year in every region. There's always that one team that is like a cut above the rest, and they seem to lose a game just out of nowhere. So like the joke used to be the complexity blue shell effect, where Cloud9 was beating every team and then suddenly lost to the team that was the worst in the LCS. And yeah, it was kind of surprising because in the first game we saw Rox Tiger absolutely slaughter. Like it was something like 30 kills to like
Oh yeah,
4
yeah,
or
it
something.
wasn't even remotely close. I
22
actually
to
like
5, 22 to 5.
more or less stopped paying attention after in the middle of the first game. So I'm like, all right, so Tigers just takes this. And then I almost didn't even pay attention to the second game until I realized, yeah, the second game, the Samsung Galaxy led the whole game.
Mm-hmm. And in the third game, we actually saw the opposite. We saw 17 to 2 in the favor of Galaxy, which is kind of insane. And I just realized that Samsung Galaxy's AD carry is Core JJ.
Yep.
Former Dignitas. They're taking our talent. They're taking our North American talent. No, he's originally
Korea's
Korean.
taking NA talent.
Yeah, he's originally Korean. But yeah, it's kind of insane. And I'll be honest, I didn't see these games. I just saw like the highlight videos. So I saw like a few minute like, oh, this is blah blah blah. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of hopefully humanizing for a team like Rox because.
Well, and it wasn't the second game. Like the third game, you could almost watch because it will just say Samsung Galaxy dominated, whatever reason. The second game was really, really weird because it was Rox Tigers just kind of making mistakes that you just wouldn't expect to make. I think they had the team comp to be fighting this game, but they weren't playing it. They had prey on that Varus, so you'd expect a lot of poking and a lot of stuff like that. But they kind of were just getting into fights they weren't supposed to get into, and were eventually slowly kind of losing that game. They would lose like 2-1s. It was never that first game was actually that first game they lost wasn't actually like this blowover. It was actually a really good game to watch on both ends. Just them being slightly outplayed and just making mistakes. But then yeah, the third game where they just got just destroyed is just like you definitely do not expect that out of the best team in the world theoretically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think the story of this past week I want to talk about is SKT.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how SKT was very strong in IEM, but at the time they were only middle of the pack in Korea. The defending world champions, and I feel like when they came back, they played against who did they play against?
Freaka Freaks.
The first was it Freaka Freaks the first game?
Yes.
That sounds like we're making up that name, but that's actually
that's actually their name, and they're bad. Well, they're bad in Korea, so they're probably the best team.
Yes, it was, but they had dropped a game to the Freaka Freaks, and it was like. Okay, this is the same inconsistent SKT that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
IM changed nothing. Blah, blah, blah. And then they play against Jin Green Wings, who are the second best team in Korea right now. So they're, a little bit of a high caliber team.
Yeah.
And SKT just, absolutely slaughtered.
Yeah, it's dominant. I just watched these games this morning kind of a bit before we were streaming the second time there. And yeah, this looked like the first game, it was like, this is SKT. This is SKT people have been watching at Worlds. SKT people have seen dominate. And you're like, can they do it in the second game? We'll probably get a much more interesting a second game. And actually, at kind of the first 15-ish minutes of this second game, it was like kind of an even game. But then you saw Faker go off on Azir and really do make a lot of great plays on a champion that's actually a little bit out of the meta now. But he goes 10-1-4 on the Azir and just they go off and they're like, oh my god, is SKT back? Like it's what everyone wants to see because as much as it's interesting to see some more parity and stuff, I think people really like seeing dominant SKT being dominant SKT.
Mm-hmm. I feel like though a lot of it had to do with Blank. I actually as a jungle main, I thought his play was absolutely insane. There was so many things going into this game, and I kind of want to go over it because I feel like the early game and for a lot of teams is, aside from the lane swapping, which I don't believe happened in this game. There was no tower trading at the beginning of the game. When you have normal lane setups, the tempo of the game and the advantages aside from just killing your opponent lane, which doesn't happen in this high level play usually, it all comes down to the jungler. And Blank was doing laps around Jin Green Wings winged. Yeah, and in the first game, he was playing Nidalee versus a Gragas. Now I've played a lot of Gragas. I understand Nidalee. I don't play Nidalee very well, so I don't play it. but I played lots of Gragas, and I don't know what was going on. Like, he backed, he took half of his jungle and then backed, and didn't go for his second buff. So Blank, I have to command not just Blank, but the whole team, because they had vision on Winged, and they realized he hadn't taken his blue buff. So Blank, after taking his buffs, went into the enemy jungle and took it. And to take a blue buff from a Gragas, like the first blue buff from a Gragas, is absolutely like detrimental to his clear time. And so at that point onwards, you just saw Blank just walking laps around Gragas, and even when he was able to get like a decent gank off, he was too far behind either in mana or in experience because of the earlier jungle invade that he couldn't get a kill off that should have been a kill. And then what you would see is the second that Blank saw Winged anywhere on the map, he was in his jungle taking the other side of the map. And so Winged would come back to his jungle and half of it's gone. And it just happened over and over again. And it was that kind of advantage that, like, if you look at the gold charts, basically from like 4 minutes in, SKT has a gold advantage from then on.
Yeah.
Like, it does not stop. Like, it was a low kill game up until the end. But it was just non-stop gold advantage that I felt like the pressure that he applied was absolutely incredible. And there was a few times, I believe, in the early game where they didn't get a kill, but they were able to force their lane opponents out of lane. Like, Azir was just having an absolute terrible time against Faker's Lulu. And so it was just absolutely dominating. Even in the second game where Blank, I feel like, wasn't doing as strong, he was still providing more pressure to the map than Winged was able to. And I feel like this is why they brought him in versus Bangi, because Bangi right now is just not able to play that early aggression that Blank plays, and just falls behind to any early aggression. And Blank otherwise just revels in it. Like he's willing to take like incredibly like bad fights and just turn them around. And he had such good map awareness that like I was in awe of watching. And it was amazing.
Which is very interesting, because coming into IAM, the biggest question mark was Blank. They were like, we're gonna play Blank because he needs more, get him some international experience and maybe get him some confidence, because he was not doing very good up until that point through the whole split whenever he was playing. And now he gets that experience at IAM, and now he's like you were saying, he seems like this dominant jungler that's gonna be like looking at replacing Bengi here on this team as their potential main jungler here.
And I think again it was this game for both teams was Bang going off. The second game though was very much the Faker game. It was really funny because in the game one, Jin had played Azir, and did poorly with it. And then in game two, Faker's like, you know what?
I'll show you how to play it.
Yeah, if you want to see how to play it, I'll show you. So he locks in Azir, and just slaughters. Like, he had there was actually one he messed up an ult, but he had like 3 or 4 insect level plays with Azir ult.
Yeah, well, and this is interesting too, because Faker lately has become very, very known for his Lulu, and so like they win that first game, and Faker, he goes 4-1-10, but it wasn't like you said, it's mostly like Blank. It was mostly like a team game, so it wasn't like Faker was the one that beat you there. So they banned the Lulu in this game. Jin does, and then Faker comes back with the same champion that was played by Jin Green Wings, and was like, I was saying how like Azir is kind of out of the meta now actually, and he's kind of like just he makes all these sweet awesome plays, but it's kind of a high risk high reward a bit of a champion now, so that's kind of why you don't see that so much in competitive play, because people like teams opt for consistency over high risk high reward. But Faker, he's just like he every once in a while just wants to remind people he'll play that Lulu and be supportive, but he just wants to remind people that he's the best player in the world.
I gotta say, it was really interesting seeing Duke on Maokai.
Maokai. This felt like this whole comp felt like last season.
It did. It was really funny because he was known. Easy Hoon and him were both known for Azir last year, and we haven't really seen it since. And Maokai used to be the dominant top laner, but you haven't seen him at all this split. But
across any region. I really like. I still think Maokai in general. I still think is a strong champion. Just kind of gone out of favor, and Duke goes in and plays it and plays pretty darn well. So we maybe see that more just because you can see that coming out of him, especially as the tank top laner meta is kind of coming back.
It was funny because I thought it was going to be a ZZ Rot Maokai.
Right.
Immediately, I thought, oh, you know what? With the tank top lane meta and the ZZ Rot meta, I guess Maokai makes sense because I guess he could grab ZZ Rot and he'd be good to go. But it wasn't actually. He didn't even build a ZZ Rot, and he was like fairly done his build. He was only one item off, really.
Yeah.
And he wasn't building a ZZ Rot at all, and I was like, oh, okay, that's actually surprising. Like, or even a Banner Command. I was like, oh, there's no. I guess he's playing a team fight build rather than a split push build, which is what we've been seeing from the tank meta, which is like, buff up the minions in one lane and then go help your team. Where he played more of the teleport plays, force a team fight, and I actually think there was a lot of little intricacies that are probably not noticed. Like for example, a lot of the damage on Jenner Greenwings in that team fight were 3 AD carries who are very spell-based AD carries, and that they're not so much auto-attack powered, it's their spells. And Maokai's passive is that every time 4 spells is procced in his vicinity, he gets an auto-attack that will heal him. And because the enemy team had a lot of low-damage spells that they're going to spam constantly, Maokai's going to get a bunch of his passive procs in one team fight. And that mixed with the peel from Faker's Azir just made a very interesting comp that was basically protect the bang. And it worked. Like it was a very interesting comp because it was not a comp I'd expect to see out of a protect the AD carry comp.
Right.
But it was very strong.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of coming up to the end of our time here for today. We did start 8 minutes late, so we've gone 8 minutes overtime. That's totally fair. Let's talk about what we're kind of looking forward to this coming week in the either LCS or LCK. What game? What are you looking forward to coming up in competitive League of Legends?
Immortals versus TSM. I'm looking forward to it. I gotta sigh because it's like I want it to be an interesting game. I don't want to hype this matchup and then it to be like, oh, Immortals just slaughters. Even if TSM loses, I'm hoping for a good game. I'm hoping to see a TSM that can actually push Immortals to the limits.
And what's interesting about this game, too, is Wild Turtle, who, of course, formerly played for TSM, he's up for beating Bjergsen's record of most kills in a split.
Oh, really?
So
I did not know that.
He very well could be doing that in this
By
game.
killing Bjergsen!
So that would be the greatest slap in the face.
Man.
Ever. As someone who really liked Wild Turtle while he was playing for TSM, and obviously I still like him now. Good for you, buddy. I kind of hope that's what happens, even though I do want to see TSM succeed more, because this game is meaningless for the standings when it comes to for the Immortals, because they're first place no matter what. But we'll see what happens. That could be very interesting. The matchup I'm looking forward to the most is in the LCK. It'll be at Friday at 3 in the morning. I'm probably going to get up for this, or just stay up for this, rather. SKTT1 and Rox Tigers will be playing a best of 3 against each other. This will be Rox Tigers lost their first series in all season. They're going to come into this game kind of on a low point, and SKTT1 looks like they might be that team that they're supposed to be again. So we can potentially see in this series, if it's true, if SKT is back, or if the Tigers are slipping, whatever, we might be able to see the truth after that series. So I look forward to that. Bam.
All right, you still gotta tell me, Johnny. We still gotta do this. I'm making it a thing.
All right.
What's your Outplay of the week?
The Outplay of the week. It's tough for me to kind of think of one right now. I was trying to think of it because I knew it was coming, and I was like, oh, man.
I'll go with mine first.
Okay, go over yours first. Let me think about it a little bit.
Mine's a little troll because I thought it was really funny. I think it's Forgiven outplaying the Greece government. Getting deferred for the military. So that's my Outplay of the week.
That's your Outplay of the week. I almost want to pick Dignitas being really bad as the reverse Outplay of the week. Just or let's go. Okay, as someone who really
Dignitas outplayed Dignitas.
Outplayed Dignitas. Okay, no. As someone who really prioritizes CS in my personal play, I'll give the outplay to Echo Fox for both Froggen and Keith. Just farming forever, even though the game was behind. And they were able to switch items. Like, I think they both switched like 2 items out for side grades. I'll give them that, because that's probably something I would have done if, well, I wouldn't have been able to get that high CS. But I probably like, we're losing. I'm just gonna farm forever and hope at some point I can win a fight. And that's what they did, and they were able to win the game. So I'll give Froggen and Keith that outplay
CS. Interesting tidbit. I don't know if you know. Did you know that the CS record in a game was broken that morning in a game in Brazil?
Right.
In the Brazil playoffs, a player got the record for the highest CS in a game, only to lose it like 4 hours later to
Could you imagine, like, I have this claim to fame, and I'm from Brazil, and no one knows who I am really, and then it's just taken away like instantly. Like, thanks, Froggen.
I think Froggen held the record before too.
Yes, yeah. Well, Froggen's
so he was like, he's like, nah, girl, I need this back. Like, I will lose this game to Dignitas. No, they were like, we're not going to be able to lose this game to Dignitas. Let's just farm our way to victory.
Yeah. I'll make a slight gripe on it. As much as like I just agree, Banner of Command and ZZ Rot are just like good imported items. It's so weird that Riot, who is always just like, we want to make plays and have item builds and do stuff that's like, that's fun. It's so weird to like have this thing. It's like, all right, you need to put a ZZ Rod here, and it just goes and automatically does something for you, and that is push lanes or Banner of Command, make a minion strong or whatever. It's kind of weird that Riot has it in the game, and I think it's just kind of a weird thing. It's very powerful and very strong. You should use it if you're playing in solo queue or whatever, if it's appropriate. But I just think it's kind of a weird. You're getting an advantage by kind of not doing anything. If that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I mean,
yeah,
the game, it's been in there for a long time, mind you. This is nothing new. It was just
right. Now it's just kind of gaining popularity in use now.
Right. So. But we'll see if that changes for playoffs. Usually, put a little.
I would imagine they want to get nerfs on that. It just feels like, our lane gets to push for free because we put down a thing over here. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. But that has been the Outplay podcast this week. Thanks for everyone watching, whether you watched live just now or if you were watching the VOD on YouTube, which will probably be out tomorrow as well if you missed any part of it. Globas, do you have anything to plug before we say goodbye here?
Check out Lineage eSports on Facebook or Twitter or the website, lineageesports.com. And check out AYB at allyourbase.com. And read some articles about TSM. And I'll have another one up this week. Hint, it involves the Challenger Series.
Cool.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right. For me, this it's not League of Legends related, but I'll just put it out there. This Sunday, I will be at the Reset Interactive Ultra Lounge for the Smash Brothers tournament, Reset Smash 3. I will be emceeing the first half of that, and I believe Steve, who is also part of AYB Online, will also be emceeing that. It'll be a fun Smash Brothers tournament, local esports events. Go follow and support them because if you're in Winnipeg, you should do that. It's fun. Our esports community is growing, super, super awesome. So my radio show will probably play. I might even just play, honestly, just part of today's Outplay podcast on my radio show, because I will be at Reset instead of doing my show. So might just play like the first half an hour of the show and on that show. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, of course, I'm going to plug is Into the League. It's my web series about people playing a MOBA to try to make it into the pro leagues. Do check that out at facebook.com/re.intotheleague or go to intotheleague.com for more information on that. This was fun as always. Globas, thanks for playing League of Legends with me all day. Thanks for carrying me. This was pretty fun. I carried one game, though. That one Sivir game I went off.
You got S ratings, got me some crates.
You guys get some crates. It's fun.
So it's been fun. We will see you next week. Again, either live here on twitch.tv/AYBTV, twitch.tv/AYBTV at 8 p.m. On Wednesdays, or on YouTube at some point thereafter. May your Hex Tech crafting crates be fruitful. Have a good week.
We need to come up with a sign-off phrase. We'll work on that. We'll work on that.
We'll have a better one for next week. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.